Hey guys, so I know this is outside my usual content, but I'm extremely passionate about this topic. I have discussed this before, and I'll link that video below. The previous video is much more about presenting the facts and data around GMOs versus organic farming, and while I think it's a bit dry, which is part of why I'm covering the topic again, I still think it holds up in presenting the data in an accurate and fair way. While I will still be going over many of the impacts of organic versus GM farming here, this video is more broadly about the naturalistic fallacy, so let's get into it. Many people will go out of their way to buy organic foods, everything from produce like vegetables and meats to processed foods like chips, boxed mac and cheese, or soda. Despite the often significantly higher prices, with some organic foods being even double that of their standard counterparts, many people are more than happy to bear the cost in order to eat more natural, healthy, and nutritious food. But what makes people think these foods are better in the first place? Do they have more nutrition, a better impact on the environment? Do they taste better? Are they safer? The answer to this all is generally no, with maybe a bit of exception in taste, which I'll return to in a moment. Organic foods have never been shown in any study to have a higher nutritional value, nor have GM or genetically modified crops ever been shown to carry negative health impacts. In some cases, such as golden rice and some genetically modified soybeans, GM foods have been engineered to carry more nutrition, reduce unhealthy fats, or fight childhood malnutrition in developing countries. Organic food also doesn't generally have many environmental positives. While in countries like the US, GM crops have led to a heightened use of pesticides, in some countries such as Canada, they've decreased their usage. And research does indicate that the heightened amount of pesticide usage is due to human failure rather than a genuine need for more pesticides in GM farming. In addition to that, GM and organic farming use different types of pesticides, with the overall environmental impact, often called an EIQ or environmental impact quotient, being less damaging in regards to the pesticides used in non-organic farming. Outside of pesticide usage, organic food often requires more water and land usage, requires tilling where GM crops do not, and produces a significantly higher amount of food waste. Both the food waste and tilling are significant contributors to carbon emissions. Along with the more heavy use of farm equipment used for tilling, the large-scale disruption of soil itself also releases carbon. Food waste, on the other hand, is present in every area of organic food production. Organic crops produce more waste in the growing process, as many more die since they are less able to withstand weather, pests, and drought. There are more thrown away before hitting shelves due to cosmetic defects, and they have shorter shelf lives. As food rots, it releases greenhouse gases. Lastly, organic crops require more land, and unlike some GMOs, are not modified to be able to reduce water usage. This not only results in higher water and land usage, and therefore deforestation, due to the higher net amount of resources used, but also produces lower crop yields with that higher amount of resource usage due to the higher frequency at which organic crops die. To come back to that little caveat about taste from earlier, this is the only claim which may have some truth to it. However, it unfortunately comes with consequences. Since many organic crops are not as shelf-stable for as long as GM crops, they are often fresher. This obviously can make them taste better, but as mentioned before, this also results in larger amounts of food waste. It's a double-edged sword, essentially. With all this in mind, where does the idea that organic food is safer, healthier, and better for the environment come from? This information isn't hard to find, it's not being kept secret by anyone. Why would anyone who claims to care about the environment choose to buy foods that contribute so dramatically to deforestation, water waste, and carbon emissions, especially for a higher price? Well, the short answer is capitalism, and we'll come back to that, but the longer answer is the naturalistic fallacy or appeal to nature. The naturalistic fallacy is the tendency of people to prefer what they believe to be natural. If it's natural, it's good and safe. If it's unnatural, it's bad, dangerous, or even impure. Of course, when thinking about this idea for too long, it tends to break down. Not only are plenty of things found in nature extremely dangerous, such as, like nightshade berries or tigers, but many human-made things, such as air conditioning or plumbing, are exceedingly good for human health. But the idea of what's natural is a bit flimsy in itself, and in my opinion relies very heavily on anthropocentrism. We tend to draw the line between natural and unnatural, in this area at least, between what modern humans do or create and what occurs without human intervention, and what things do require human intervention in order to exist. However, I don't think any person in their right mind would call a beehive, an anthill, or a rabbit warren unnatural, nor would they call a crow using compound tools, an orangutan using medicinal plants, or elephants burying and mourning their dead unnatural. However, despite this, just like GM crops, homes, and modern medicine, these structures and tools would not exist without the creation of them by a sentient being who benefits from their existence. If rabbits didn't build warrens, there would be no warrens. Gutsit Gibbon has an excellent video on anthropocentrism that I'll link below, and she is much more qualified than me to speak on this aspect of the topic. But the consensus is essentially, nothing we do as humans is unique. We simply have the advantage of sharing knowledge through generations to build upon it through written language. A person born in isolation is not capable of building an iPhone any more than a gorilla is, and an iPhone is nothing more than a complex tool when boiled down to it. Compound tools being something used by other species from corvids to other primates. There's no meaningful distinction between human creations and those of other animals. The line we draw in the sand between natural and unnatural is shaky at best and non-existent at worst. Aside from the very loose, if even existent at all, definition of natural, the idea that organic food is quote-unquote natural is just really not true in the sense it's believed to be regardless. If we're going with the definition of natural as in would not exist without human intervention, even if I find flaw with that idea, this is not true of organic produce either. Through selective breeding, we've dramatically changed the properties of everything from apples to chicken breast. Natural apples taste like raw potatoes, natural bananas are mostly seeds, and chickens, along with other livestock, have been bred to produce more meat and grow faster. None of these things were done through the introduction of genes not naturally occurring in the species, and many were brought into existence long before we knew how to genetically modify plants or animals directly. They were domesticated, the same as dogs or cats. But despite this not being done through direct gene modification, they would still not exist in their current state without the intervention of humans, just like GM crops. All that being said, I don't view that as a negative thing. As I stated before, there are many things that would easily fall outside the common understanding of what's natural that have been extremely helpful for our survival. But it also leaves us with the issue that if neither of these things are truly natural, neither of them have negative health effects on humans, but one of them helps curb environmental damage while the other requires it and charges a premium for it, why do so many people still choose the latter? This is where we come back to capitalism. Sorry, I know I don't talk politics on here a lot, but this is honestly the issue. While GMOs are by no means exempt from the corruption of capitalism, the majority of their benefits, while also contributing to lower cost of production, also contribute to their environmental positives. While organic food, however, its sole existence relies on a frequent and easily exploited bias that many people possess. While it's lacking in benefits to a consumer as well as the environment, this bias allows people to feel justified in paying a premium for it. People will still pay the extra $4 for an organic brand of foods that are not healthy, such as chips, candy, soda, or heavily processed products like American cheese, boxed mac and cheese, or Oreo-style cookies. But the internal bias surrounding the idea of natural allows people to feel like they're making a healthy choice when eating a burger made from organic beef with an organic bun, organic American cheese, and it's all cooked in an organic butter. But at the end of the day, this food includes the same trans fats, the same amount of nutrition, largely tastes the same, but costs them an extra couple bucks and likely hundreds of acres of deforestation. Organic food doesn't hide this in its branding either. Alongside slapping big giant labels on things listed as organic, brands frequently use imagery and names that elicit the idea that the food was homegrown or that it was grown out in nature. Brands like Back to Nature, Good Health, and Black Forest, alongside green packaging, imagery of nature, and slogans and phrases like Nature's XYZ, Simple XYZ, or Humble XYZ, present a picture of food that's good for the environment and good for you. But in reality, let's call it what it is. It's marketing. The marketing of these products is explicitly designed to prey on people's inclination towards the naturalistic fallacy, and by proxy make them feel proud of feeding into it. This, in combination with decades of scare tactic marketing about GMOs as frankenfoods that will change your DNA or are created through radiation and experimentation, presents a picture of GMOs as a scary sludge made by an evil scientist with lab coats and spiked hair and big goggles, and organic food as wholesome and even cozy or comforting. But unfortunately, the reality is that the images of big green fields, names evoking the idea of returning to nature, and the imagery of happy farmers and big red barns is not the whole story on organic food. Natural does not inherently equal better, and as we grow in our technological capabilities, we also discover new opportunities to protect human and environmental health. Many technological advancements have been detrimental. There are also plenty, like GMOs and pasteurization, that have made leaps and bounds of progress in protecting us and our planet. Drinking raw milk isn't healthier because it's less processed and more natural. It's just filled with listeria and salmonella. Eating organic fried chicken isn't any healthier than eating KFC. It's still fried chicken. And buying organic tomatoes isn't more environmentally friendly than buying a GM tomato. It's actually worse. As stated before, GMOs aren't exempt from the corruption of capitalism, but neither is pretty much any other product or experience that exists within it. You're not feeding into capitalism more or less, and you're not any healthier by buying either GMOs or organic foods. But by dismantling the fear marketing created in order to promote organic products and buying GM ones instead, you're not only saving yourself a hefty chunk of money, but in doing so, you're reducing support for an industry that cares much more about its image and profits than the values it presents itself with: environmentalism. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Ha-de.
The children think too much, they've hardly a fear of God, always asking questions they should only